Well, hey guys, if you are really struggling with your skin right now, you are going to want to watch this video. We are going to be talking about a really common skin problem that affects a lot of people. And in the vast majority of cases, buying skincare products is not the solution. What am I talking about? Nickel allergy. Allergy to nickel is actually super duper common. Nickel is everywhere in our environment. It's in the air that we breathe. It's very abundant in the soil. It's in the foods that we eat. And our skin sees a lot of nickel. We're always coming in contact with it. Allergy to nickel, again, is very common, and it can result in what is called allergic contact dermatitis. Basically, anywhere on your skin where nickel is coming in contact, you can develop an eczema, a dermatitis. Eczema, as a side note, is just an umbrella term for 7 different skin conditions. One of those conditions is called allergic contact dermatitis, and that is what we are talking about here with nickel allergy. Anytime it comes in contact with your skin, you get a rash, and it is not pleasant. It can be very sneaky. It's not something most people suspect in the vast majority of cases. You have to go sleuthing around. Really any body site where you are coming in contact with nickel, but there are a few body sites that are most notorious for nickel contact dermatitis. Your earlobes, because nickel is frequently present in earrings. Your lower stomach, because guess what? Jeans, the belt buckles, the snaps of our pants have a lot of nickel in them. And there's a lot of friction there. That nickel gets rubbed into the skin and can elicit a contact dermatitis. And you may not be aware of the fact that, oh my gosh, it's actually my pants that I am allergic to. Well, not your pants, but the metalware in the closures. Your wrists are another common location for allergic contact dermatitis due to wristbands, metal wristbands from like your watches or bracelets, because one of the things that really can drive this type of rash is not only the presence of nickel, but if you have nickel in contact with the skin under friction, and then you have sweat is an irritant, and it pulls more of the nickel into the skin. So a wrist dermatitis is a common location. You can develop eczema on your face as a result of allergic contact dermatitis to nickel. Many eyelash curlers, for example, have nickel in them, and you're putting them up close to the delicate eyelid skin. Eyelid skin is very vulnerable to contact dermatitis because it's thin, but the other place you may be coming in contact with nickel that you're touching with your hands, and it can get transferred to your eyes, and the skin there is just a lot more sensitive to allergens. Not only the skin around the eyes being thin and allowing for better penetration, but also the muscles around the eyes, when you blink, the way they contract, it's almost like an accordion, and it kind of sucks that allergen up closer to the skin and driving it into the skin to elicit that allergic reaction. So first you can develop itchy eyelid skin. It can get really flaky, really dry. You're constantly rubbing, and it can get thickened over time. As I said at the beginning of the video, nickel allergy is really common worldwide. Now, throughout Europe, they have regulations in place that have limits to how much nickel can be included in things. And to a certain extent, that's actually helped cut down on the incidence of allergy to nickel and problems with nickel contact dermatitis. But it's still a worldwide problem because, again, it's so ubiquitous in our environment. Plus, we're coming in contact with nickel through pretty much like so many things that we come in contact with in our environment have nickel in them. They're metal and they have nickel alloy in them. So it's really hard to escape. A lot of people actually are allergic to nickel, and they don't really have an issue with it coming in contact with the skin. Or maybe only under certain circumstances does it really cause problems for them. Whereas other people become exquisitely sensitive and develop exuberant eczemas when it comes in contact with the skin. You can develop allergic contact dermatitis to nickel at any point in your life. It affects both men and women, although historically women tend to be more affected in comparison to men. A lot of that may be related to the fact that for many, many years at least, women tended to have more piercings in comparison to men, although that has changed, and nowadays men are, piercing themselves just as much as women. Speaking of piercings, your risk of allergic contact dermatitis to nickel goes up significantly with each piercing that you get. So the more piercings you have, the greater the likelihood that you will have nickel contact dermatitis. So let me know in the comments how many piercings you have right now. Speaking of at-risk group, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that eczema is this umbrella term for 7 different skin conditions. If you weren't aware, it's October, it's Eczema Awareness Month. Allergic contact dermatitis is just one type of eczema. But here's the thing, if you have other types of eczema, you may be at greater risk for developing allergic contact dermatitis, and nickel allergic contact dermatitis is more likely to be a problem for you. For example, if you have atopic dermatitis, which is a type of eczema, you have a skin barrier problem inherently. Irritants, allergens, they get into the skin more readily. So if you have atopic dermatitis and you're flaring and you're exposed to a lot of nickel, you're more likely to develop a sensitivity to it. Another type of eczema, it's called dyshydrotic eczema. I have a video all about this as a side note. Hand eczema. You get these little firm blisters that are super itchy and they start to ooze this clearish fluid that's also very itchy. There is a close association with dyshydrotic hand eczema and allergic contact dermatitis to nickel. Like they piggyback off of one another. Check out my video on that hand eczema because I go into all sorts of tips and tricks in that video for how to cope with hand eczema. It's not just nickel, it's other stuff in your environment that can trigger it, like frequent hand washing, etc. You also have stasis dermatitis. This is a type of eczema that people develop in the lower legs as a result of basically poor vein function. They get swelling in the lower legs, and with that swelling, there's redistribution of fluids in such a manner that it actually just breaks down the skin. And with that breakdown, you get an itchy eczema. Again, more likely for allergens to come into the skin down there on the lower legs for you to become sensitized to things like nickel. You also have nummular eczema. Nummular just means coin-shaped, also called discoid dermatitis, coin-shaped patches of very itchy skin. I have a whole video on this type of eczema as a side note, so check that out if that's something you're dealing with. But those coin-shaped lesions of itchy skin, they are, very open and accommodating for that nickel allergen to get into the skin and further aggravate your skin and cause problems for you. And you also have something called neurodermatitis. Neurodermatitis is a type of eczema where the skin is itchy, the individual scratches or rubs, and that scratching and rubbing thickens the skin and makes the nerves in the skin very almost hyper irritable, hyper aroused, and they start releasing more itch signals. So it becomes a very chronic itch scratch cycle. And somebody may start out with allergic contact dermatitis to nickel. They keep coming in contact with it. The chronic eczema then becomes neurotized, and they develop a neurodermatitis along with that, where there's constantly itching, scratching. In those situations, even when the nickel has been completely removed, you're totally, not touching nickel or anything of that sort. The skin, the nerves there are just overstimulated and constantly leading to those itch signals that cause you to scratch. So it still is a major issue for you. Then folks who have seborrheic dermatitis, this is a facial eczema. There is an impaired barrier there, and therefore they're more vulnerable likely to having nickel penetrate into the skin and cause allergy. How do you know if you are allergic to nickel? The history of coming in contact with nickel and developing a rash to it is a clue. And to understand this further, a lot of people will say, well, I've been using this thing for years and never had a problem with it. Exactly. That is the devil that is allergic contact dermatitis, because you become sensitized to something that you have been using for years. It can happen at any point in your life. But the real way to know if you're allergic to nickel is you see a board-certified dermatologist who does patch testing. Patch testing is a type of test that we do in dermatology to test for contact allergens, where we take these patches that have little wells on them with different common allergens, and one of them is nickel. We put the patches on your back, and you have to leave them on your back for 2 or 3 days, and the patches are removed, and we'll look for a reaction. It's important to understand, this type of allergy is very different from seasonal allergies. It's very different from food allergies. Allergy is just an umbrella term for a variety of different types of allergy. This is very different than like food allergies, for example, where you eat a food and you develop hives, or maybe you have upset stomach. You can develop lip swelling or frank anaphylaxis in the case of severe food allergies. It's different from an allergy to, bee stings. That is an allergy that can lead to anaphylaxis. Allergic contact dermatitis, very different, because you come in contact with the thing you're allergic to and it doesn't lead to a problem immediately. It's a delayed type hypersensitivity. It takes some time for the problem to show up. For that reason, there's often a misconnection in your mind because you're not putting two and two together that you have been exposed to something that is the problem, because it was usually, in most cases, wasn't an immediate reaction for you. Are you someone who goes to an allergist and gets allergy shots? Or maybe you take pills to desensitize you to those allergies. Here's the thing, with contact dermatitis, this type of allergy, those things don't work. You can't desensitize yourself to the allergen. For the most part, you will remain allergic to it for the rest of your life and you'll have to avoid it. There's no allergy shots for this type of allergy. It doesn't work that way. The main thing you have to do is go out of your way to avoid coming in contact with it, which is easier said than done. When you are in the throes of contact dermatitis, you have a rash that's oozy, weepy, you can do compresses to alleviate the symptoms and soothe and calm down that inflammation. I'm a huge fan of Don Burrows soaks, aluminum acetate. And what you can do, you can buy this at the drugstore. It's really inexpensive. It's great for any type of rash that's very oozy. You just reconstitute it in some tap water. You can take a clean washcloth and soak it in that Don Burrows and then apply it to the area that's affected as a compress. Another great reagent you can get in the drugstore is colloidal oatmeal. Great. It is very hydrating, soothing. It has anti-inflammatory compounds and it helps provide some barrier support to the skin, which is an issue here when you're in the throes of an eczema. You have an impaired barrier when you have eczema of any type flaring up, and that's going to allow more stuff to get in. It's going to make the skin very irritable and it's going to be very itchy. So colloidal oatmeal is a great thing. And again, you can do, you can soak from head to toe in that in the bathtub if you want, although it does kind of make a mess in your tub, or you can do in a bowl and do compresses. See a board certified dermatologist, not only to get on the right path to determining if it's the nickel that you're coming in contact with that's the problem or something else. And your dermatologist can prescribe steroid ointments, which are really important. A lot of people talk about topical steroids as being a band-aid for eczema, and they're absolutely not. Topical steroids really help to clear out the inflammatory milieu that is coming into the skin and leading to this rash. Without the topical steroids, it can be very hard to get rid of that, even once you remove the allergen. And you don't want to leave that inflammatory milieu around long enough because, like I said, it can develop into a frank neurodermatitis. So the steroids really help get that out of the way so the skin can heal. The steroids that we prescribe in dermatology do have side effects, but when used appropriately, and you follow under the supervision of your dermatologist, they're very, very safe. Speaking of an impaired skin barrier, one of the things that can happen with any type of eczema, but especially allergic contact dermatitis like to nickel, is that because the barrier is impaired, not only do irritants get in, but little pesky microorganisms do as well, namely bacteria. And you can develop a bacterial infection on top of the eczema, commonly referred to as impetigo from staph bacteria. So in these cases, you may need a topical antibiotic. Then, of course, you have emollients. Bland moisturizers can soothe and help with barrier recovery. And barrier creams can help limit penetration of the allergen and help allow for recovery. Check out my video on how to use a barrier cream. I go into detail there. Once you suspect that you are allergic to nickel and it's causing skin problems for you, I highly, highly suggest you to get something called a dimethylglyoxime nickel test kit. These are very valuable. You can buy them at the drugstore. You can get them on Amazon. And what they are is this little solution. Sometimes it's 2 solutions or sometimes it's just 1 bottle. And you put a drop of the solution or a drop of each of the solutions onto whatever it is that you suspect has nickel. Then you take a cotton swab, a Q-tip as we call them, rub it over the drop on the item, couple of times. And then if there is nickel in it, it will turn a pinkish red. If it remains clear and colorless, the item is free of nickel and you can, move on with your life. If you're testing your jewelry, these tests don't mess up your jewelry. They're safe for your jewelry. So go to town. It's actually kind of fun to do. I like to nerd out and go around testing things for nickel, even though I don't have nickel contact dermatitis. I just like to geek out and test things for nickel. What could possibly be the source of your nickel contact? Like, what is it? Jewelry is pretty common. As a side note, I have a whole video on your jewelry is causing your skin problems, where I go into the different types of metals and how nickel is in different types of metals and what to look for. So I'm gonna link that video in the description box. So if jewelry is the culprit, you definitely wanna watch that video. I give a lot of tips and details in that video. The clip on your necklace. You may have a beaded necklace that's on like a nylon string and it's just like plastic beads, but the clasp could be the culprit. That little tiny clasp back here rubbing on your neck all day could be driving nickel in and causing a neck rash for you. Rings are a big one too, because rings are causing a lot of friction on your finger. A lot of people wash their hands with their rings on, and some of the soapy water gets trapped up under the ring. Then that friction further erodes at the skin barrier. Any nickel in the ring gets leached into your skin, can really set you up for allergic contact dermatitis and definitely aggravate dyshydrotic hand eczema. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, just take a little clear nail polish and paint it over. That is not a great tip. It does not protect you, because the nail polish will erode. So temporarily, like if you had to wear the piece of jewelry for maybe an hour, it might help, but it's really not it's really not eliminating the risk there. You've got to be mindful of zippers, snaps, belt buckles. Let me know in the comments if you wear suspenders. You got to watch those suspender clips. Even though you've got your shirt tucked into your pants, you'd think that would be sufficient to protect you, but the nickel can leach right through. Bra hooks are another one. Bra hooks are a real common culprit. So switch out to like sports bras, eyeglasses, sunglasses with metal frames, nickel commonly found there. And so you have to switch out to plastic. Many personal items have nickel. If it's got metal on it, probably has nickel. Test it with your kit if you're allergic. Lipstick, for example, and makeup. We love all the beautiful makeup packaging, right? Like that's 90% of what is the appeal of buying makeup is the packaging. Unfortunately, a lot of it has metal in it, and a lot of that metal has nickel. So that can be a source. Like your lipstick, maybe not the stick itself, maybe not the lipstick itself, but the packaging, holding it in your hand. Handbags, purses, they've got metal hardware on them. Keys, key rings, pens, which breaks my heart because I love pens. I'm a pen collector. But if you have a pen with metal, like the metal clasp, nickel. Often and almost always nickel is present in those. Utensils can have nickel, knives. And then of course, money. I was whining about this the other day, how nobody uses cash anymore. But I guess one upside of that is that, you're less likely to come in contact with metal from handling money. Coins that are silver appearing coins, nickel. This is especially problematic for cashiers who handle a lot of change. Wear gloves. Paper clips full of nickel, so be careful of those. And I was talking about this in a blog the other day, but recently there was a study that looked at, hairdressers, God bless them, they are an at-risk group for a lot of different types of contact dermatitis, developing allergies to a lot of things. And of course, nickel is a big one. And a lot of the tools that they use have nickel in them, and they're handling them. The tools heat up and release more nickel, can really give them hand eczema for sure. So be mindful of that. Wear gloves. All right, you guys, that is everything I wanted to share with you about nickel contact dermatitis in today's video. Now, if you are dealing with eczema, you are definitely going to want to check out my recent video on eczema skincare, where we go to the drugstore and shop skincare products for eczema. I will put that on the end slate. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.